What do you do at StoryTech?
I'm one of the managing partners, and basically StoryTech is a boutique agency that specializes in helping to facilitate storytellers and technology companies. And storytellers can be brands, they can be anybody who's trying to communicate a proposition to somebody else, and technology companies, bringing them together because there's so much going on right now and they speak different languages, and so we actually help facilitate collaboration.
What is a typical day in the life working in that company?
Well, there's a lot of eating and laughing, for sure, but a lot of it is keeping up with the latest technology trends. So we attend a lot of events. We curate a lot of events as well. There's a big education component to it. And then a lot of it is networking and connecting all the dots, because we basically are our network. And so it's a lot of talking to people and finding out what they're doing, what their pain points are, what they need help with. A lot of our colleagues are in very senior level positions at different production companies and studios and new types of content businesses. So it's a lot of just connecting the dots with everybody.
What do you think is the driving force changing the industry now? Is it the content itself? Is it the audience or the technology?
Well, I think it's it's a perfect storm of a lot of different things. Technology is moving at an exponential rate, right? Different things are happening. Storage is doubling, speed is doubling. Access to sophisticated tools is being really democratized so that consumers can have very sophisticated cameras and devices. Everything's always on. There's Wi-Fi everywhere, so the ability to grab content is constant as well. And then you have changing consumer behaviors. You have different expectations. You have the fact that since we are connected all the time, I expect to be able to watch something wherever I am, whenever I want it. And those new millennial behaviors that are now rippling out to the rest of our culture, where we expect that content to be relevant and personalized to us. So I'd say you have this confluence of changing behaviors, technology, and that democratization of devices.
Do you think that changes the types of stories that people want to hear, or do you think that storytelling as a form won't change?
Well, I think storytelling as a concept doesn't change, but I think the formats are going to change. For instance, in a serial storytelling type of situation where you have a show that plays and then it gives you a little cliffhanger to the next week's show. In today's binge viewing world, you don't need that anymore. So now storytellers have to start to think about, okay, is this going to be delivered weekly? Is it going to be delivered in a 5-hour binge? Is it going to start as weekly and then change to a DVD thing? What's going to happen with foreign rights? And so I think storytellers now have to think more about the final product and the distribution than they ever had to before. And also they have to think about who am I trying to reach and where am I going to reach them? Because if I'm reaching them in a Starbucks where they're looking for snackable content, then I need to be able to tell a 5-minute something that maybe pushes them to engage in that 30-minute piece when they're at home. So now you have to really think, almost like an advertiser, you have to think about the consumer path. And what are they grabbing along their path? What devices are they going to be using? What's the context for that piece of content that they're consuming?
What do you think is the biggest hurdle that content producers are facing at the moment when it comes to capturing that audience and making revenues from that audience?
Well, first of all, advertisers are behind what's going on with behaviors. And so advertisers aren't moving their dollars fast enough to what's really going on. And so you have content being demanded and created for these new behaviors, but the business model that was locked and loaded for so long isn't following. And so we're all having to come up with new business models. And that has to do with new commerce models. So it's now transactional things like micropayments and subscription models that are replacing that traditional branded, sponsored 30-second pod type of situation with commercials. So I think the challenge is always that the money is following afterwards in terms of the old models, and so you just have to craft new models. And those new models are challenging. People don't like to write checks for things that have never been done before.
What are you most excited to talk about today?
I think getting producers, content creators, writers to understand that all these technologies, these new trends in tech are actually tools in their toolbox, and it's not happening over there, but it's actually something that they should keep in touch with and be aware of and then start to leverage, because the technology now is not just for your IT professional, but it's actually impacting everyone's life and our culture. And so it's not only about the device that you're using to view the content, but it's the impact it's having on behaviors, and that's going to impact stories, because it's who we are. Who we are as a culture is changing because of all this technology.
There's one thing you want conference attendees to take away today. What would that be?
I would say that they need StoryTech to move their businesses forward, selfishly. But I think it's that everyone needs to understand that they have to keep up on what's going on and not to fear change, not to be afraid of what's coming, and to be okay about this constant evolution of our world.
Well, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.